The situation in Los Angeles reached a boiling point this week, fueled by a dramatic declaration from the White House. Speaking to troops at Fort Bragg on Tuesday, President Donald Trump announced his intention to liberate the city of Los Angeles, a statement that immediately sent shockwaves across the nation. He described the ongoing protests in the city as the work of a foreign enemy and framed his administration's response as a necessary action to restore order. This powerful and confrontational language set the stage for an unprecedented federal intervention into a major American city, escalating tensions that had been simmering for days. Following his declaration, President Trump authorized a significant military deployment. He ordered 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 U.S. Marines to be sent to Los Angeles. The official mission for this force, which comes with a price tag of $134 million, is to protect federal property and personnel amidst the growing unrest. However, the presence of uniformed soldiers on the streets has been seen by many as a provocative show of force. This move represents a serious escalation, transforming a local issue of protest and policing into a national standoff between federal and state authorities, with the city's residents caught in the middle of it all. The legal foundation for this deployment is itself a point of major contention. On June 7th, President Trump took the extraordinary step of federalizing the California National Guard. This action effectively placed the state's own troops under his direct command, overriding the authority and strong objections of California's governor, Gavin Newsom. Such a move, which has not been seen in the United States for over 60 years, bypassed the typical process of a governor requesting federal assistance. Critics immediately decried it as a dangerous overreach of presidential power, while supporters argued it was a decisive step to handle a crisis that local leaders had allowed to spiral out of control. The arrival of the military has fundamentally altered the landscape of Los Angeles. While the stated purpose of the troops is to protect federal assets, their presence has been interpreted in vastly different ways. For some, the soldiers represent a return to safety and a firm response to lawlessness they feel has overtaken their city. For others, the military vehicles and armed patrols are a terrifying symbol of federal overreach and an intimidation tactic aimed at silencing dissent. The deployment has created an environment of deep anxiety, where the lines between peacekeeping and occupation have become increasingly blurred for the people living through it. The current turmoil began not with the military, but with a series of aggressive immigration enforcement actions. On Friday, June 6th, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents began conducting large-scale raids, primarily targeting Latino neighborhoods throughout Los Angeles. These operations are part of President Trump's broader national campaign to dramatically increase deportations, with a stated goal for border agents to make at least 3,000 arrests daily. The raids sparked immediate fear and anger within these communities, leading directly to the protests that have now gripped the city for 5 consecutive days. Many saw the raids as a direct assault on their families and neighbors. As a response to the ICE raids, thousands of protesters took to the streets of downtown Los Angeles. Their demonstrations were initially peaceful, filled with chants and signs condemning the federal government's immigration policies. However, as the days wore on and the federal presence increased, the mood began to change. Clashes erupted between protesters and law enforcement, with the Los Angeles Police Department using rubber bullets and flashbang grenades to disperse the crowds. The situation became more volatile, with reports of looting on Monday night, where 23 businesses were damaged, adding a layer of chaos to the politically charged demonstrations. In an effort to regain control, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass declared an overnight curfew. The order covered a 1 square mile area of downtown LA, the epicenter of the protests, and was in effect until 6 a.m. this morning, Wednesday, June 11th. Police officials warned that anyone violating the curfew would face mass arrests, a threat that was carried out on Tuesday night when nearly 200 people were taken into custody. While the mayor said the curfew was necessary for public safety, critics argued it was a tool to suppress legitimate protest and unfairly punish those exercising their constitutional rights to assemble peacefully. The impact of the unrest and the heavy-handed response has been felt far beyond the protest zones. Residents in nearby neighborhoods like Little Tokyo have expressed deep frustration. They report that the massive military and police presence has not made them safer, but has instead brought out the worst in the protesters. They feel that the federal intervention has inflamed tensions rather than calming them. turning their community into a conflict zone. Their experience highlights a growing concern that the government's strategy is backfiring, creating more chaos and division instead of restoring peace and order. President Trump has justified his actions by painting a picture of a city under siege. He has repeatedly spoken of a migrant invasion and an assault on peace and public order being carried out by illegal aliens and criminals. This narrative suggests that Los Angeles is overrun by crime directly caused by undocumented immigrants, creating a crisis that local officials are unable or unwilling to handle. According to the White House, the deployment of federal troops is a direct and necessary response to this supposed breakdown of law and society. This story powerfully resonates with his supporters, who see it as a defense of national sovereignty and the rule of law. However, available data on migration and crime in California presents a starkly different reality. Contrary to the idea of an invasion, the number of undocumented migrants living in the state has actually been decreasing. Official figures show a drop from 2.9 million in 2010 to 2.6 million in 2022. Specifically, the number of undocumented migrants from Mexico, a frequent target of political rhetoric, fell by over 600,000 in the 8 years leading up to 2018. These statistics from multiple sources, including government agencies and research groups, suggest a trend that runs directly counter to the crisis narrative being promoted by the administration. The connection between immigration and crime, a cornerstone of the administration's argument, is also not supported by recent crime statistics. In fact, crime rates in California are currently on a downward trend. Compared to the previous year, violent crime in the state was down by 4.6% in 2024, and property crime saw an even larger decrease of 8.5%. Furthermore, a comprehensive study from July 2023 found that migrants are significantly less likely to be incarcerated than U.S.-born citizens, at a rate that is 60% lower. This data challenges the claim that migrants are a primary source of crime and disorder in the state. This clash between the administration's rhetoric and the statistical evidence lies at the heart of the current conflict. For those who support the president's actions, the situation in Los Angeles is a clear sign that drastic measures are needed, regardless of what statistics might say. They trust the president's assessment of the threat. For opponents, the federal intervention is based on a deliberate misrepresentation of the facts, designed to stoke fear and justify an unprecedented use of military power against American civilians. This fundamental disagreement over the nature of reality itself is what makes finding a common ground so incredibly difficult. The federal intervention in Los Angeles has ignited a fierce political and legal battle between California and the White House. Governor Gavin Newsom has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics, calling the deployment a brazen abuse of power and a direct assault on democracy. He warned that if the federal government can override his authority in California, other states are next. In response, Newsom filed a lawsuit against President Trump and his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, aiming to end the illegal takeover of the state's National Guard. His actions represent a defiant stand against what he sees as unconstitutional federal overreach. Local leaders have echoed the governor's outrage. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass accused President Trump of intentionally creating chaos for political gain. She argues that the White House is more interested in creating a spectacle than in solving any actual problems on the ground. This sentiment is shared by many local officials who feel their authority has been undermined and their city is being used as a political pawn. The initial legal challenge from the state, however, faced a setback. A federal court denied California's emergency request to block the troops, though a full hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, which will be a critical moment in this constitutional showdown. Public opinion on President Trump's hardline immigration policies is deeply divided, reflecting the country's broader political polarization. A CBS News and YouGov poll conducted in early June before the latest events in Los Angeles showed that a slim majority of Americans, 54%, approved of his mass deportation policy. Similarly, 50% approved of his overall handling of immigration. These numbers suggest that there is significant, albeit not overwhelming, national support for the kind of aggressive enforcement actions now being seen in California. This support forms the political base that allows the president to pursue such controversial measures with confidence. Within California, however, public sentiment has historically been more supportive of migrants, though that support has shown signs of softening. A poll from February 2024 found that 60% of California residents believed migrants are a benefit to the state. While still a majority, this figure is down from 66% in 2023 and 78% in 2021, indicating a growing ambivalence. The events in Los Angeles are a stark illustration of this national divide, turning the city into a flashpoint for America's struggle over immigration, states' rights, and the very nature of presidential power. What is happening here matters because it tests the limits of our laws and the strength of our democratic institutions.
I hope you found this video useful. Follow me right here on YouTube for more great content daily. Download my international best-selling book, Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone, for absolutely free at growfast.club. I say again, download my book at growfast.club for all of my 7-figure growth hacks. Get your copy now while it's still free.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God. It's beautiful.